Do you ever finish a book that you love absolutely everything about, log into Goodreads to rate this book 5 stars, and encounter dozens, if not hundreds or thousands, of people saying this is the worst piece of literature they've ever encountered in their entire lives? If you've answered yes, you're not alone. I love to read 1-star reviews, especially short 1-star reviews. So this video truly goes out to the haters. I'm a big fan of your work. Today I'm going to be reading some 1-star reviews of books that I would put on my favorites list. We'll do some new favorites, books that I've rated 5 stars, and see what the haters have to say, because usually they have something funny to say, if not completely devastating. We'll start with the newest first. I'm just going to go down my read list. So we're going to start out with The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I just finished up this series today. I didn't rate the first book 5 stars, but this became very quickly one of my favorite series. So we're gonna say what people had to say about The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Should have stopped reading this at the mention of his tail. I want this book to come to life so I can punch it in the face. It is terrible. I low-key hate my friend for telling me to read this book. That is my biggest fear. DNF, Carter not a real man, sorry, get that tail removed and then try to bully people. Valid. DNF 1%, the first chapter was a test and I failed it. I feel like you can't rate a book if you DNF it 1%, but that's just me. Next, let's read some reviews for True Grit by Charles Portis. This was my favorite Western out of all the Westerns that I read this year. I thought that the narrator was really great, really unique. The story was really good and I loved it. I loved the vibes. Okay, what do the haters have to say? If Ernest Hemingway wrote a Western, true and honest narration, succinct sentences, bores you to death. Watch the films. Worst book, would give it 0 stars if I was able to. Too country for my liking. Next, let's read some 1-star reviews of my very favorite book that I read this year, Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I thought the voice in this book was also really, really unique, and the topic that Barbara Kingsolver addressed, the opioid crisis and all of the impacts that it can have on children and communities, was really important topic. This is a retelling of David Copperfield. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. Someone said, I think we need to have a chat with the Pulitzer Prize committee. Let's hear the criticisms of Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is a book that I would sell a small piece of my soul to read for the first time again. It was so good, so unique. I'm not gonna spoil anything about the plot because I went in knowing absolutely nothing, and I think that that's the right way to go. I'm also not going to read any reviews that contain any spoilers. Weird and unforgivably boring. It's like reading my ATM receipt in Esperanto. Someone said no. Someone gave this 1 star and said, read this in preparation for Catabasis. I'm very curious what they're gonna think about Catabasis. Should be retitled Paralysis. A few lines made me drowsy. A few paragraphs and I was almost asleep. Any more than that at one time, I'd need the paramedics to revive me. Esquire calls this book spellbinding. I find I am immune. I don't have anything nice to say, so I won't say anything at all. That's my review. How about Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, a book that I have read the physical copy of, listened to the audiobook, and watched the show of. Completely obsessed. What have the haters to say? Don't do drugs, kids. An insult to Fleetwood Mac? I think Stevie Nicks liked this book. What do we call this? Drivel? Can I call this drivel? Or just cheesy, faux edgy? Childish, inane characters taint this pedestrian rock and roll fiction. Someone said, I did learn a new word and I want to use it in my review. Kind of read like a children's book? What books are you reading your children? This is about drugs. We get it. People did a lot of drugs in the 70s. Apparently that's child's play to some of y'all. Okay, this one is gonna hurt because I do know this book has haters, but I think it's my favorite book of all time. This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal, el-mohtar, and Max Gladstone. Oh, I love this book so much. Even a lot of my friends didn't really like it, so I'm prepared and I understand where the haters are coming from, but will I understand where the 1-star haters are coming from? Felt like I was reading Simlish. Jenny said, this was so damn boring and confusing. I'm sorry. Jenny, that's part of the point. Pretentious crap. No, this is how you write a shitty book. No. Ivy says, I don't know what's going on and I simply don't want to know. I guess you're entitled to that. This prose style was like nails on a chalkboard to me. If this prose style was nails on a chalkboard to you, I wonder what you like to read. Waxing poetically about non sequiturs. Don't we all? Tammy warns us to LMAO, look away. I want to look more. I want to look towards. Sophia says, this is how you lose my interest. Okay, let's hear some bunny hate. I feel like this book gets so much hate. This is another one that I loved so much that so many of the people that I recommended it to really didn't like it. It's a fever dream of a book and you have to suspend a lot of disbelief. I think this is how you lose the time war. Like if you didn't like that, you probably also wouldn't love Bunny. I wouldn't say that they're very similar. I just think that the reasons that people dislike one would be a reason that you would dislike the other. I know that Bunny was really popular on Book Talk as well. I feel like it's definitely not a typical Book Talk book. This is a book that I would recommend someone that already reads a lot. Like I wouldn't bring this to a new reader and be like, here, because I think that if I read this early in my reading journey, I might be scared to ever read a book again. At this point in my reading journey, that is what I'm looking for and that is what I love, but it could be a little jarring to someone that doesn't read a lot or doesn't read like weird girl fiction. Victoria says, my pea-sized brain cannot comprehend this abstract nonsense. Danny says, that's nice, gunshot. Samuel says, is this what LSD is like? And Hannah says no. Sorry, Bunny, but this made me feel like I don't know how to read. Honestly, same, but in a good way. I tell everyone that you have to get to the halfway point of Bunny because it turned around at the halfway point for me. I was not enjoying it when I first started it. Like The Secret History, but less fun and not interesting at all. I definitely recommend this book to someone I hate. This is like Mean Girls meets Frankenstein, written in the style of David Lynch, filtered heavily through acid. That was pretty much what my review was, but mine was a 5-star instead of a 1-star. Zach is so sick of motherfuckers hyping shit up for nothing. Me too, Zach, but I did like this book. Caitlin says, burn it. Emmy says, DNF at 45%. I need an adult. What the f did I just read? Mom, come pick me up. At 45%, I was also where Emmy was at, waiting for my mother to come get me. Genuinely concerned as to how this has been shortlisted for awards. Who is judging these things? The writing was pretentious, stupid, boring, samey, and just all out annoying. The characters enraged me. The plot was stupid and so ridiculous that I couldn't grasp what was really happening. I was waiting for the protagonist to wake up or admit she was on all kinds of drugs because this was that bad. I think she was. I think that the ending was so ambiguous that you could say anything to explain any part of the book. Isaac said, what a pretentious, misogynist, weird-ass waste of time. I would agree that it was pretentious and weird, but I didn't get the misogyny out of Bunny. Let me know if you disagree because I'm very curious to hear a little bit more about that. Let's read some reviews for Circe by Madeline Miller. She wrote the other super popular TikTok book talk book, Song of Achilles, and both of those books for me were 5-star amazing books. Great example of how some books that blow up on Book Talk are so incredibly deserving of their hype. Like Madeline Miller took 10 years, I think, to write Song of Achilles. Circe, I thought, was just like the Song of Achilles level of characters and setting, but it was more of an epic that she gave to Circe, since the female characters in Greek mythology didn't always get their own stories, didn't really get their own stories at all at the time that they were being told. So I thought that was just really special. But let's see what the haters have to say. God help dear Circe. I'm glad this bitch is a fictional character because if she was real, I'd knife emoji, knife emoji, knife emoji. We're starting really strong. I'm not sure if the reason I don't like this book is because it took me too long to finish or because I don't like the fact that Circe is pretty much reduced to a stereotypical woman who wants and waits and needs a man / motherhood, ... Okay, what about The Secret History by Donna Tartt? I recently read The Goldfinch, and I think that I like The Secret History a lot more than The Goldfinch. I liked The Goldfinch, but it also, I feel like, sent me into a week-long existential crisis, which does, I would argue, mark a really good, impactful book, but I didn't enjoy my existential crisis. What did the haters say about Donna Tartt's other super popular, well-loved book, The Secret History? Walking Tragedy says, to be honest, if I wanted the thoughts of a bunch of classic elitists who know dead classic languages, I just have dinner with my family. Everyone in this book should have died. What a load of pretentious bum poo. I wanted to give it 2 stars because it's not that bad, but I got a migraine from rolling my eyes. It was very pretentious, but it's a critique of the pretension, not pretentious for its own sake. How many times those fuckers raise their eyebrows at each other? The real tragedy here is that I am now dumber for having read this book. Pretentious wank. I mean, what little I managed to read in the course of nearly 2 months was not for me. This is not a spoiler. It's gonna mention something that seems like a spoiler, but it happened on like the first page. Either Donna Tartt A has a vendetta against rich people, B, a vendetta against poor people, C, something to get off her chest about a murder she committed at college, or all of the above. Either way, she should work it out in therapy and not in a painfully detailed 600-word book. I think you mean 600 pages, that's fine. She does have a vendetta, or at least critique of rich people. That's the point. It's satirical. That's what it's for. I hate when people hate a book because they don't get it. But like also, if I read a book and I didn't get it, I might hate it also, but it's like, try to get it. And then you can say, okay, I get it, but like it wasn't for me. Not just like, I hate it because I don't get it. Google is free. I think the best way to describe this book is dense. That one I have no argument against. I feel like I've written a really similar review to Mari's about books that I didn't like. She says, I liked the part where I finished it and it was over. That's super valid. Okay, let's do something that I have done before, which is read 1-star reviews for The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This book is special to me, I think, because I read it when I was 19 and searching for like what I want my religion to be and discovering my spirituality. This book at age 19 was very transformative for me. I think that if I read it now as an adult, which I read it a couple years ago and liked it a little bit less, but I just think it's really like simply put good life lessons. It is very simple and it's just like a very simple story. We follow the story and through the story we learn that the journey is the destination, which I think for a lot of people, they read it and they're like, okay, yeah, duh, which good for you. There's reminders in that book that I sometimes really need, and now it feels like comforting to go and reread it, even if it doesn't feel as profound as the first time. All that aside, sucks. If books were pills, Alchemist would be a sugar-coated placebo with no real effect. Well, good thing they're not. Ram says, I feel pity for every tree has been cut in order to make papers for this novel. Just not my type of book. This was the first book I read. One of the most stupid books that I have ever read, and I gave it only 1 star because of some well-formed sentences. You actually can't give anything 0 stars, so good try. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, The Alchemist. Okay, you disagree. T says, someone humble this man. Daft Pink says, I always come back to read the 1-star reviews. Apparently me too. I've got your personal legend right here, Paulo Coelho. This may be the first book I've ever read that was so bad it actually made me angry at the author. If I ever run into Paulo Coelho, I hope I'll beat him down to the ground and take the inflation-adjusted equivalent of the $13.95 I paid for this worthless rag out of his wallet. If you want to read something sort of thoughtful on the whole follow your dreams thing, the author's short introduction is actually better than the book and doesn't delve so much into this mumbo-jumbo quasi-mystical crap that find in the story. But on the whole, the author is nothing but a snake oil artist, and this book belongs on the shelf with The Secret and other self-help books that use some sort of mystical sounding language to tell you that pursuing the things you want in life isn't just a matter of personal satisfaction, but will actually make the world a better place in a profound way. But what if your heart's desire is to be a serial killer? How does that fit into your little mystical worldview, Mr. Coelho? That was like personal. The Untethered Soul, which was another spirituality kind of book. This one I think dives deeper into different topics. The Alchemist kind of reminds me of a parable, like just a story that Jesus would tell over a glass of water that he turned into wine about why the journey is more important than the destination. And I think that that's a comforting tale, and I think The Alchemist is a comforting tale. The Untethered Soul was like, let's untether your soul by ripping it out of its body, and I also really loved it, just for different reasons. Chris said, I remain tethered. Jill says, stupid, could have been summed up in a paragraph, which that's how I feel about kind of all self-help books. I'm like, someone has said this before in fewer words, kind of how it is. Inspiration's like bathing, it's only effective when it's practiced often. So if you read it when you don't need it, it's probably gonna sound annoying and dull and wordy. But if you read something like that when you do need it and when you are seeking, it might have a really profound impact on you. Anne says, basically a never-ending yoga class where the instructor is high and thinks everything they say is profound. I've taken some yoga classes in Austin that I think Anne may have also taken. Wow, I gave David Goggins' book a 5-star. I was a different person in 2021. Okay, Uno Mas, an OG fave from when I was a kid that also I've reread and thought, wow, just as good as when I was a kid. The Lightning Thief by Riordan. This is gonna hurt personally because these books were my childhood. I wanted to be a Camp Half-Blood, and I still really do. I'd buy it physically just to wipe my ass with the pages. No, you would not. Most overrated, poorly written young adult book I have ever encountered. You have not read enough young adult novels. Read some real shitty young adult novels and get back to me. I'd be grateful for Percy Jackson. I was forced to read this book by my parents. They don't like it or don't want to read the Percy Jackson series ever due for that reason. Mom and Dad, why are you forcing your kid to read Percy Jackson? Let your kids read what they want to read. They're gonna hate reading. Feels like the author lacked imagination, so he had to write the story around Greek mythology, which isn't that interesting to me. Don't pick it up then. It's Greek mythology. That's what it is. Unless you're reading it for a book club, which I will denote in a review, like, I read this for a book club and I don't like this type of book. Like, if you're like, I don't like Westerns and you're rating a Western poorly, it's like, why did you read it then? Like, it requires a background knowledge of gods and goddesses. No, it does not at all. Now I want to know what books you've rated 1 star and what your review said, because there's nothing I love more than a funny 1-star review. If you're gonna hate a book, be funny. Thank you.